Welcome back to the Happiness Hack. I'm Tim Coulson, and I want to start today with a very simple question, but I want you to sit with it before we go any further. When was the last time you trusted yourself completely? Not just made a decision, not just got through the day, but actually trusted yourself, your instincts, your read on a situation, your own inner compass. Because for a lot of people listening to this, that question is harder to answer than it should be. And today I want to explore why that is and what we can do about it. Today is all about learning to trust again without losing yourself. Because here's what we all need to know. Trust is not a simple thing. Most people think of it as something you either have or do not have with another person. But this is what I have learned, both as a counselor and as someone who has lived through situations that have stripped my trust right down to the bone. The most important trust you will ever rebuild is not trust in another person. It is trust in yourself. Because what happens when we go through a relationship or an experience that violated our sense of safety, whether that is coercive control, betrayal, emotional abuse, or the slow erosion of any relationship that was never quite right, then our nervous system learns a very specific lesson. It learns that your instincts cannot be trusted. You thought it was safe and it was not. You thought that person was trustworthy and they were not. So the brain, trying to protect you from ever being hurt like that again, starts to second guess everything. Every instinct becomes a question mark. Every gut feeling gets overridden by the need to check and recheck. It's not a character flaw, but it is a nervous system that has been trained to be afraid. So what we need to do is begin to rebuild trust. And let me say clearly what rebuilding trust is not. It is not deciding to give everyone the benefit of the doubt again. It is not simply choosing to be more open or more available. It is not deciding to believe the best in people regardless of what you've been through. That kind of blanket trust, after what some of us have experienced, is not healing. It's the absence of discernment, and it tends to put people right back into patterns and situations that they have just escaped. Real trust, rebuilt carefully and honestly, is about developing a relationship with your own instincts again. It's about learning the difference between two things that can feel identical but are completely different. What feels familiar and what actually feels safe. That distinction, I want to say this clearly, is one of the most important things we can learn. What actually feels safe. So, the work of Dr. Stephen Porges and his polyvagal theory has given us an incredible framework for understanding why our bodies respond the way they do after difficult experiences. In simple terms, our nervous system is constantly and unconsciously scanning our environment for signals of safety or threat. This process is called neuroreception. The challenge for people who have been through sustained difficulty is that the nervous system's threat detection can become miscalibrated. It starts to identify familiar things as safe, even when they're not. And it starts identifying new or unfamiliar things as threatening, even when they are perfectly safe. And this is why so many people coming out of difficult relationships can find themselves drawn back to the same type of person or dynamic. Not because you're foolish, not because they know better, but because your nervous system has been trained to recognize that pattern as familiar and to translate familiar as safe. Now, understanding this is not about beating yourself up for past choices. It is about genuine compassion for why those choices made complete sense to a system that was simply trying to protect you. And it is about beginning very gently to retrain that system. Because when we try to learn to trust our own voice again, it's a challenge to our sense of safety. And I want to name something that I see pretty often. It's when you have been in a relationship where your trust was consistently violated, where your instincts were gaslit, where you were told your read on a situation is wrong, and you lose access to something crucial. You can lose access to your own inner knowing. You start to question everything. Was that genuine? Should I trust this person? Am I reading this right? Am I overreacting? And here's what I want you to hear. Your instincts were not wrong, but they were systematically undermined. And there is a profound difference between those two things. So the work now is not building trust blindly in other people. The work is to gently, patiently rebuild your trust in yourself. And that begins by practicing small signals. So when something feels off, instead of dismissing it, simply notice it. You don't have to act on every instinct immediately, but you do have to start noticing them again. Now, for men, trust tends to show up just a little bit differently. It's often less about trusting other people and more about trusting yourself. Can I be a good father? Can I trust I won't make mistakes? Can I trust that if I let someone in again, I will not lose myself or push them away or repeat the patterns that I've spent years trying not to? These are real and important questions. And the answer to all of them is the same. You build self-trust the same way you build any kind of trust, not through bold declarations or big promises, but through consistent, honest action. Every time you choose to respond rather than react, every time you sit with that discomfort instead of numbing it, every time you show up the way you wish that someone had shown up for you, you're building evidence. You're building a case of the person that you are becoming. So here's the most useful thing I know about rebuilding trust after difficult experiences. Start small. Start internal. Before you focus on trusting other people, practice trusting yourself in tiny, low-stakes situations. Your body says it needs to rest, so rest. Something feels off in a conversation and you acknowledge it rather than dismiss it. You feel like going for a walk, so you go. These small acts of self-trust are not trivial. They are foundational. Every time you listen to yourself and nothing catastrophic happens, your nervous system receives a gentle but important message. My instincts can be trusted. I am safe inside. Over time, that foundation becomes the ground you stand on, when you decide whether to trust someone else again or not. So your happiness hack for this week is a 2-question body check-in. You can use this anytime you're trying to navigate whether something or someone feels right. So when you're in that situation and you're not sure how you feel, pause and ask yourself, first, does this feel safe or does it just feel familiar? And second, if this was a brand new person or a situation I had never encountered before, what would my gut instinct be saying to me right now? Now, these 2 questions create just enough distance from our old patterns to let our genuine instincts speak, not the conditioned ones, not the ones that have been shaped by fear or old experience, but the real ones. And trust, for now, does not have to mean certainty. It just means that you're willing to listen to yourself again. So thank you for trusting me with your time today. I genuinely do not take that lightly. If rebuilding trust feels like a mountain to you right now, that is okay. You don't have to climb the whole thing today. You just have to take the next small step and trust that that is enough. Because it is. Because one small step compounds over time. I'm Tim Coulson. This is the Happiness Hack. And as always, remember, the day is what you make it.